The following is a program of the Santa Barbara County Education Office. To learn more, visit sbceo.org.
I'm Susan Salcido, Santa Barbara County Superintendent of Schools, and I'm so delighted to introduce my guest today, Kai Tepper, who's the Outreach Program Manager for the Santa Barbara Bowl. Kai, welcome and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
I can't wait to dive into all the wonderful things that are happening at the Bowl and the work that you do. But I want to say and tell the audience and the viewers today that the Santa Barbara Bowl Foundation does so much for education. We get a chance to work with you, which we love, but the reach from the Santa Barbara Bowl is truly throughout Santa Barbara County, and want to thank you so much for the contributions that you make to students, to our schools, and for the arts. So thank you.
Thank you.
We get a chance to learn about you, Kai, and the work that you do at the Bowl, but what I'd love to do is start with your childhood. I know that you're a local, so
Yes.
Let's start there and talk about where you were born and raised and what schools you attended.
Sure, absolutely. So born and raised in Santa Barbara. My mother immigrated here from Japan and met my father through mutual friends. And I went to Monte Vista School from K through second, and then my parents bought a house on the Mesa. So third through sixth, I was at Washington Elementary School, part of the GATE program there, and then went on to Santa Barbara Junior High and Santa Barbara High School. So once a dawn, always a dawn.
Always a dawn. And you have a sister.
I do.
So let's
Yes.
talk about her.
Yeah, so I have a younger sister, Shio, who's 4 years younger. And between the two of us, I feel like we have all of the arts covered. She's very musically inclined, and although I went more of a visual arts route in my childhood, we both grew up playing piano. I also did a little ballet, but it's funny now in our adult lives. You know, she's teaching at Santa Barbara High School. She's the vocal music director for the theater there, and I'm at the Bowl, helping to fund performing arts education. So it feels nice to come back to the arts, which is what we were raised with.
We grew up with, right?
Exactly.
And your mother immigrated here from Japan, and there isn't a really big Japanese culture or a large group of Japanese individuals here, at least when you were growing up. Is that right?
Yeah, so I've often kind of joked and said, all of the Asians know each other in this community,
Right.
And especially it felt like in the early '90s when I was going through school, I felt like I definitely stood out as being kind of the other. There weren't a lot of Asian kids, and being half Japanese, I think in some ways was. In some ways I think was a blessing.
You talked about your sister and you covering the basis for performing arts. So I'm going to get a little bit more specific again. You talked about your sister as a musical director, I think, for Santa Barbara High School's theater program.
Yeah, so she's the vocal music director. So, but she graduated from UCSB. She was a music ethnology major, but she's a very talented pianist. In college, she also started getting into guitar. She plays sitar. She sings. She plays a lot of gigs around town. So you keep your eye out. You'll be able to see her.
Yes.
Yeah.
Kai, I want to go back to your school life. You talked about growing up here. You're a local. Let's talk about college. Where did you attend, and what was your major?
Sure. So I went to Cal State Channel Islands in Camarillo. And my major was art, so my emphasis was studio art and art history. Ever since I was maybe in fourth grade, I knew that I wanted to do something in the arts. I went through the VADA program at Santa Barbara High School. I was so convinced that I was going to be a professional painter, and by the time I got to college, I realized that's a really hard path, and I just felt like maybe I wasn't quite talented enough to pursue that as a career. So I studied graphic design as well, just as a kind of a backup. But it was actually through my art history studies that I fell in love with this idea of arts nonprofit. And there was something really exciting to me about being able to help other artists tell their story through, whether it was through gallery curation or art criticism. So while I was in college at Cal State Channel Islands, I started an internship at the Arts Fund, which is a small local nonprofit here in town. They have a teen arts mentorship program, which I had done in high school. So when I went knocking on their door and said, hey, would you take me as an intern? They were very welcoming of that. So that was really where I learned a lot about arts nonprofit and how to still have a career in the arts that made a big impact in the local community.
Yeah, I could see the bridge from your past to nonprofit to even where you are today. And I want to go to where you are today, but I wanted to have one more question back to the past, which is around your parents and arts.
Sure.
Because, and I emphasize you and your sister both covering arts in multiple ways, because I'm wondering if it came from your mom and dad. Were they involved in the arts, or to what extent did they impact the two of you?
That's a great question. So both my parents are creative. I'd say especially my mother. She's a very talented artist visually. Her sister, my aunt, is also a musician, and she lives in Japan, but she's a pianist. And so I think my sister and I, from day one, were just immersed with arts around us. And both my parents love music. My first concert ever was definitely at the Bowl as a baby. But I think that, it's also reflective of the generation that they grew up in. Both of them had wonderful arts programming in their school systems. And I think that now the system has changed a little bit. And so there's definitely students who maybe don't have the same opportunities that my parents did. And I'm just very fortunate and feel grateful that they were so supportive. When I said, oh, well, I want to go to art school, they were like, okay,
They were in.
They also were the ones who said, well, maybe you should study graphic design just to be, just to be sure that you have something to fall back on.
Yeah.
But,
Well, the trajectory then from infancy at the Bowl to the study of art and to contributing to a nonprofit and now being an outreach program manager at the Bowl all makes sense for sure. So did I miss anything on the trajectory there before we
pretty
talk?
much covers it.
Okay, so
Yeah.
tell us what you first started doing at the Santa Barbara Bowl and then now what you do.
Sure. So several years ago, I think it was right out of college, I had a friend who was managing the merchandise booth just for concert days, and she knew that I was very passionate about music, and she said, hey, we're looking for volunteers if you'd like to help me sell merchandise. It's like, of course, I get to go see a concert for free and sell merchandise.
Right.
So I started volunteering, when was that? Maybe 2012, and that quickly led to me then managing the merchandise booth for a couple seasons, but simultaneously I was working at the Arts Fund as well. So the workload of trying to run a small nonprofit and working the concerts was getting to be a little bit of a load. So temporarily I kind of pulled back from doing merchandise at the Bowl, but the timing was really well aligned. The Bowl was finishing their capital campaign in 2014, and so the board of directors was shifting their focus away from renovation of the facility to fundraising for education outreach. So they were creating this brand new position, and the program director reached out and said, hey, this is maybe pretty aligned to what you're doing over at the Arts Fund if you're interested in applying. So I said absolutely, and
That's when it
worked
started.
out. Yeah,
that's when it started. So let's talk about the outreach program, because it too has grown under your leadership, but also under the leadership of the board and the team at the Bowl. So let's talk about its mission, goals, what it's trying to do, and then some of the programs in which they do it.
Absolutely, yeah. So the mission for education outreach at the Bowl is to support performing arts education for youth throughout Santa Barbara County by providing resources, building partnerships. We really believe in investing in our future artists as well as our future audiences. So we do this through a number of different ways, through grant-making programs. We have a full grant program that runs in the spring as well as in the fall. We also ended up building up an instrument fund program as we started to see more and more an increase of asks for instrument-related needs. We have a sponsorship program that allows us to support community events that benefit youth performance opportunities, so things like the Earth Day Youth Stage, or Solstice, or the high school musical program, or theater productions. We are able to support a lot of these performing arts initiatives that that fill us up with joy, but also make such an impact on the students. A couple other programs that we have at the Bowl. We have our Community Ticket Subsidy Program, which is a program that provides access to concerts at $5 a ticket for students and their families. We typically include a $15 food voucher as well, so making sure that the Bowl remains accessible as possible. We typically have about 20 tickets per show, but in some cases we've been able to allocate more tickets if we know that it will be very popular. An example in the past, Lindsay Sterling, who I had no idea who she was before she came to the Bowl the first time, but it turns out she's very popular. So we had almost 100 tickets for Lindsay Sterling to that show, and she came back to the Arlington later, and through a partnership with Golden Voice, who's our promoter, we were able to distribute 200 tickets to students throughout Santa Barbara County. So that's a wonderful initiative for us that we love, because it really connects the access to the arts, but then also, we hope inspires a love of live music and performing arts for these students in the long run.
Right.
The other program that we run at the Bowl is our children's events. So once a year, typically about once a year, we have an artist that does a free performance for children, and it's a wonderful partnership made possible through Children's Creative Project, and SBCEO has always been a wonderful supporter and partner in this as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, but we're able to bus anywhere from 2,500 students to 5,000 if we do 2 shows back to back, and it's amazing. It's great to be able to see these students fill the Bowl with excitement, and the artist that we have on stage is really carefully chosen to make sure that it ties, the content of the programming ties to curriculum standards, and I work with Children's Creative Project to put together a study guide that goes out to the teachers in advance. So,
goodness, there is so much.
We do a lot.
Yes, there's so much that the outreach program does and provides. Kai, you described some of them in wonderful detail. Really appreciate it. And starting with the one that you just described, the children's concert, you're absolutely right. I was able to attend this year. You led the efforts truly with partnerships from others, but to turn around and see, or look down in the audience and see children and teens and youth from all over Santa Barbara County, bussed from Santa Maria, Lompoc, everywhere, here locally, to hear the choir.
Yes.
And as the choir was singing, they were also talking about yourself and identity and equity and really standing up for yourself and all. It was just wonderful, beautiful, and you were right on stage, so it was great to see. You also talked about the instrument program. Can you say a little bit about that instrument program? Because I think those who are watching and listening might not know what that means in terms of, are instruments provided? How are they given out in schools? What does that mean?
Sure, absolutely. So believe it or not, music programs are almost just as expensive as some of the sports programs, especially at the high school level. If you have, marching band and string, orchestra and all that, every time there's a football game, there's a band there too. So the cost of instruments can be very challenging for schools to keep up with, especially if you think about maintenance and supplies and tuning and all of the rest of that. So the instrument fund was put in place to address the need of not only purchasing new instruments, but also repairing and maintaining current instruments. So we do everything from, fixing violin bows to getting, new drum heads on drum kits, you name it. Yeah.
Understood. Thank you. That's really helpful. And then the ticket subsidy you were mentioning, where children, youth, teens can go and get concert tickets, could be their first experience in a concert too. So it's pretty incredible.
And oftentimes it is. Yeah. We distribute that program through partnerships with teachers in the schools, and then other social service organizations and nonprofits that benefit from our outreach programs, and oftentimes they'll send us photos of the students and these big smiling faces and thank you notes that say that was my first concert, and And what a story to be able to tell and say, oh, my first concert was Katy Perry at the Bowl.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Both Katy Perry is a wow story, and so is being at the Bowl.
Yeah.
It's a wow story because it's such a treasure. And one question on tickets. I understand that some of the proceeds or some of the ticket costs actually when you go to a concert might go to your outreach program. Is that right?
Yes, absolutely. So every time you buy a ticket at the Bowl, $1 of that ticket goes right back into our outreach program. So it's a wonderful way to continue supporting arts education. That $1 per ticket primarily funds our grant making program. So, in this year, this 2019, we will have, I think, funded about $250,000 worth of grant funding for arts education throughout the county.
So viewers who've ever bought a ticket to a concert at the Bowl can feel really good about contributing to the outreach program.
Yes.
All right, great. And earlier at the top of this program, I was talking about ways in which we interact frequently, and we talked about a few, but I wanted to bring up one other, and that is the Santa Barbara Bowl Performing Arts Teacher of the Year. So I want to give that opportunity to you to describe what it means to the Bowl, and it hasn't been very many years, but this is something that's a priority for the Bowl, I know. So you talk about what that means.
Thank you so much. Yes, the Salute to Teachers program is one of my favorite programs that happens here in this community. I think it's a wonderful opportunity to support educators, and I certainly wouldn't be here had it not been for the influence and guidance and mentorship of amazing educators throughout my educational career. But Salute to Teachers, we saw a wonderful opportunity to support and really elevate the performing arts teachers that work so tirelessly and passionately, in support of the students. So it's a wonderful program to be able to partner with you and highlight a Performing Arts Teacher of the Year. The ability to also recognize teachers across the county, I think, is remarkable. Yeah. And, I think we're in year 5 now, and every year I am just blown away by what amazing, brilliant people these educators are, and I learn so much from them. And even being able to see the video vignettes from their students just always brings tears to my eyes, because you can truly see what a difference these teachers are making in the lives of those students.
Yeah, thank you, and the Bowl for providing the opportunity for us to recognize the Performing Arts Teachers of the Year. They are truly remarkable, and you do elevate their recognition and status so much through that recognition. And you mentioned your own teachers in the past that really have been an influence or mentors for you. Let's give an opportunity for you to share about them, him, her, all of them.
Absolutely, yes. I mean, I think that everyone has a special gift to offer. So every teacher that I've had, especially through Santa Barbara Unified School District, I think has been such a valuable part of my life, even if they played such a small piece in that. But I have to say, starting from 3rd grade, Janet Emmel at Washington Elementary School was one of the most remarkable human beings that I've ever met. And she really kind of embodied this creative approach to her teaching. And I know my sister would probably agree that she was one of our favorite teachers of all time. But going through VADA and Santa Barbara High School, all of my VADA teachers were really there for me in a time that was a challenging kind of time in my life. Teenage years are hard.
They are.
And for me, the arts were my outlet, and those VADA teachers were so patient, and they believed in me. Joe Velasco was an English teacher of mine at Santa Barbara High School. He's still there, and he's now become a very good friend of mine. But he's another one that really sticks out because he was so patient with me and saw my potential and made me believe in my own potential. I think that in some ways it took me a little while to really figure out my path and how to manifest my goals and how to manifest the drive that was kind of internally in me. But to have educators and mentors, support you and encourage you makes a huge difference.
Yeah, it does. Thank you for that. And I know the teachers you just mentioned would be delighted to hear you mention their names. And you talked about life as a high school student, and now you are in a profession where you're really giving back to students and to youth and to the community. So I want to ask you a question around our youth who are graduating soon, and they're going to be going out and working in their own professions. What would you say, knowing what you know and your experiences that you've had, are some of the skills that you think are really, really important that our graduates these days leave high school knowing and are able to do?
That's a really great question. I think for me, the ability to work well with others is critically important. Regardless of what career path or industry you end up working in, if you are able to be open-minded, be patient, have empathy for others, and a willingness to learn from others and work as a team, I think that's half the battle. For me, I over the past few years, I've really honed in on what it is that I value in my life, and empathy and compassion for others is really at the top of that list. And so I think that's what's driven me to want to do nonprofit work. Also my belief that arts can be a tool for social change. Helps kind of guide me in that direction. So I think for students that are getting ready to graduate high school now, I mean, I'm sure that they already have that, that intuitive feeling of this gut feeling of something that gets them excited in the morning. They might not even be able to put a finger on it yet. So I think some students know early on, but leaning into that, so whether that's, if somebody really is attracted to leadership qualities, or some people maybe it's more administrative things. I think being curious and courageous too to pursue that.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
That's really, really helpful and insightful. Early on in that response, you talked about collaboration and teamwork and working with others, because that is really what you do all the time in many different ways. And I do as well. So I'm thinking about your team then at the Bowl. They're incredible. All the individuals there. And, I just think about the fact that everyone's doing something really, really important. You want to give a little shout out to the team at
Absolutely.
Yes?
Yeah. I mean, it truly takes a village, and we have a really special group of people at the Bowl. Our visionary board of directors, our wonderful executive director who's been there for 20 plus years, and our amazing staff, from facilities to box office staff, our concert staff. I mean, we've worked really hard, I think, to establish a culture there of inclusivity and really, the Bowl is a community treasure. So it wouldn't be what it is without the efforts of everyone who comes into play. I mean, everything from food and beverage staff, making sure that we have everything we need for concert day, and our donors. We have to thank our donors too, who really believe in the mission of our organization and want to cherish the Bowl in the same way that we do.
Yeah. I have a curiosity question, and I think other people might have the same question too, which is, we've talked about your role as an outreach program manager, so many ways in which you're supporting the community. But the question I have is on concert day. So there's a concert season, and it seems like you and so many of your staff are there for concert day working. So is that right? Would we see your team there on concert days, even if, okay.
Yeah, so we have a full-time staff is pretty small. We have about 13 full-time staff, and generally speaking, we're all there on concert day. The concert operations is so critical to allowing us to continue supporting arts education too. So, we couldn't do one without the other, really. And on concert days, for myself, I might be there overseeing our community ticket subsidy program, making sure that tickets are dispersed to the students that signed up for those tickets. For me, it's also a time to check in with our supporters and to connect with them and thank them for their wonderful contributions. But yes, it's in some ways it's all hands on deck,
right.
for our concert operations. We want to make sure that everything's going as seamlessly as possible so that our patrons and community members can can have the best experience as possible while they're at the bowl.
Well, I challenge our viewers next time they're at the bowl for a concert to spy you know, to find the other staff members too, because in a sea of individuals who are there to enjoy the concert, you can definitely look around and see you always, and as well as the staff really supporting the inner machine of the Santa Barbara Bowl. And so would you say that there is no one typical day, that all days are different or same, or how would you say you spend most of your time at the bowl in a year?
That's a good question. I'd say for me, because my work is so connected to education, it really fluctuates based on what's happening in the schools. So what's going on with this school academic calendar year will really influence what my work might look like. So, for example, holiday season, there's a lot of holiday parades and holiday performances. So I tend to be a little busy during that time trying to get sponsorships for band fees so that they can perform in the parade, or maybe somebody needs a last minute drum head replaced. So for me, every day is a little bit different. There are some quiet times, December, January, when both the concert season is not taking place and schools are out. That's my time to kind of have a little quiet time. Yeah. And then of course during the concert season, there are no surprises.
We know what's happening each day and each evening, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So Kai, as we wind down this time together for this interview, I really want to give you an opportunity to share a message with those who are viewing today. And it can be about the bowl, and it could be about arts, and it could be about youth, it could be about all of that. But I know that education and the arts are so important to you. And I'd love to give you an opportunity to express again the importance and a message to the community about all of that.
Thank you. I think that arts education is so critically important to building a healthy and vibrant society. And I'm very grateful to be working for an organization that I think shares this value in wanting to support our community in that way. Arts education for me was really a lifesaver, but it builds critical thinking skills, leadership skills, collaboration skills, and I think the more that we can support arts education, the better life will be for that student, but for our greater community as well. And I'm so thankful for our community that gives back to arts education and to you and your leadership in supporting the arts. I welcome more people to come celebrate our community at the bowl and continue supporting the bowl, because you'll be supporting arts education.
That's right. Thank you so much, Kai.
Thank you very much. You
just a moment ago talked about thanking the community, but I think the community would want me to thank you and the bowl for all that you do. I mean, it just as a venue and facility itself, standalone, it's a treasure. But the impact that you make countywide on families, on children, on schools, on youth, on a mindset and a healthy community is really, really, that's the treasure. So Kai, thank you so much for your leadership and for your hard work and for your support of our community.
Thank you so much.
I'm Susan Salcido, Santa Barbara County Superintendent of Schools. Thank you so much for joining us today for this edition of Local Leaders.